guys, welcome to Multiverse. Our friend Joe Ferreira asked a question a couple of weeks ago that I could not answer into just a single post, so I thought, let's make a video about it. So basically the question was that if I could add 5 things to this universe online, what would they be? It doesn't matter what they are. So let's get started. So number 5. What I would add at number 5 is more lair options. I'm going to cheat a bit. It's going to be pretty much in 2 categories. The first thing is that I wish they would add more themed lair, like a Teen Titans themed lair, or a Legion of Superheroes themed lair, or a Kryptonian themed lair. But technically, we can already do at least some of those. I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. And the other thing is being able to expand the old lair. Basically, we got 2 new lairs. We got the Brainiac lair and we got the Atlantis lair that have this big, humongous room that the other lairs do not have. Sadly, it creates an issue where you have to pretty much choose. Either you choose the lair with the bigger room, or you choose a theme that might fit more with your character. Let me show you exactly what I mean. So basically you can see the Brainiac has this big huge room, but lairs like let's say the cave lair don't have that big room. And sadly there's not, if you have big items like the T-Rex, I'll show you the T-Rex in just a minute. If you have big items like the T-Rex, there's not that many or that many places where you can actually fit it. Like you can probably fit it here, but it ends up being at the bottom of your lair and you can barely see it. You could fit it here, but it interferes pretty much with the beam that's over here. So technically you can kind of put it here, but it doesn't really work as well. So you have to make a choice between either using your bat lair for, let's say, your bat themed character with your bat base items, which is what I meant about the theme lair. Like technically, here they did give us a Batman base item, and they gave us a whole bunch of Batman base, and they gave us a whole bunch of Batman base items. Even though we don't have an official Teen Titans base, I'll show you something in just a minute. So if you want to have a big room to be able to show off your big T-Rex properly, sadly you end up having to use either the Atlantis lair or the Brainiac lair, which means that you're gonna end up using a lair that is not really themed for Batman for some of your Batman base items at least. So if we could expand the Batman the cave lair with this big room, that would be perfect, or any of the older lair basically. I basically end up with having to choose between using the Atlantis lair because it has the big room, or using one of the other lairs that would fit more with the theme of your character. And also I mentioned about theme base lair. Technically we don't have a Legion of Superhero theme base, but we could sort of try to recreate one. Like here we have the Time Sphere, which is straight out of the Legion of Superhero comics. Although in this case I think they were emulating more the one we have in The Flash, or I think they had it also in Legends of Tomorrow, I forget. But also, like if you want to create a Teen Titans themed, there's quite a few base items nowadays that allow us to have that. So even though technically we don't have a Teen Titans lair, we can sort of recreate one using various base items. So I guess that one is not really a priority. Technically we can already create a Teen Titans base if we want to. So I wish that at least we could expand every lair so that they would have this room in them. So if I could add one thing, I guess that would be that. The option to be able to add this room here to the Batcave, to the Techno lair, to pretty much all the lairs that we have in this universe online right now. I'm a man with a simple taste, so you're probably going to see that in my choices. Number 4 would be the option to be able to customize our backups or our sidekicks. For those who may not know, these here are the backups. It's basically 3 backups that you can summon if you need to. Right now, the way to be able to sort of customize them is that there's one different backup with each type of lair that we have in this universe online. But also, as time went by, they started adding more and more backups. they started adding backups. Like you can see here, the 3 Brainiac robots. These came from with the Brainiac Lair. But there's also, at some point, they added some Joker goons that we could have as backup. They added some Riddler goons we could have as backup. They added some Guardians from the Guardian Time Capsules that we could have as backup. So they've added other different backups. Sadly, the one thing that people really wanted, it wasn't really, well, this is, I guess, a first step, having different types of backups that we can choose from. But the true thing that people wanted was to be able to customize the backups that they have. Basically, in this universe online, as you guys most likely know, but just in case you don't, you gather hundreds of styles, literally. As time goes by, the more you play the game, the more you gather styles, and eventually you end up with a lot of styles that you don't use quite as much. Like, you can use them in your armories, but even then, most people use, 2, 3, maybe 4 armories. So at most, you're going to use like 4 of your styles. And as you can see, like, you have hundreds of styles that you can choose from. So one option would have been to be able to use those styles to customize the look of our backup, or even to customize the look of our sidekick. Again, they did give us different sidekicks. Like here we have the LexCorp robot sidekick that we can have with the LexCorp starter pack. Sadly, if we could customize the regular sidekicks, again with the styles that we have, that would be a good option. Another thing that some people had suggested in the past would be to use, let me show you, would be to use, let's say, legend characters as sidekicks. So imagine if for your sidekick, if you could choose one of your legend character to act as your sidekick. So imagine having Superman as your sidekick, or having Batman as your sidekick. So that's something that some people had suggested, which obviously didn't happen. Could it happen? Maybe, maybe not. You never know. Sometimes there are things that we thought would never happen that actually ended up happening. So I guess that could be another option to be able to customize our sidekicks. What if we could use, or even the backups? What if we could select, let's say, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, and Atrocitus as our 3 backups? So one of the things I would add is the option to be able to either customize our backups or sidekick by using our styles from our style tabs, or at least by using our legend characters or something like that, as opposed to only having variation that gets added in time capsules. Number 3 would be something a little crazy maybe, although not so crazy. If you go into the on duty menu, you can see that there's already some legends PvE that we can play. Basically, there's 1 or 2 missions depending on the time of the week. So right now, as you can see, we have Legends Area 51 that we can play using legend characters. I'm pretty sure I suggested that on the forum eons ago. What if we had the option to be able to play every single mission using our legend characters? It's not a big issue now, because nowadays we can pretty much recreate a pretty darn good version of Batman, or the Joker, or Harley Quinn, or Nightwing. Pretty much any characters. Actually, Lex Luthor. We can't really recreate a Lex Luthor this awesome just yet, but maybe someday. So anyway, right now we can recreate some of those characters. We can't recreate them all, like a Bizarro. Creating good Bizarro, that's still very challenging to this day in this universe online. But eons ago, being able to create those characters, that was not really an option in this universe online. So the idea was, what if we could play the game using those characters? What if we could select our Superman Legend character and go play any missions that we like? Or let's say we could use a Bizarro in any missions that we like. That was one of the big problems with missions like the Hunt or Test Subject Number 1. We were stuck using the one legend character. So when we played Test Subject Number 1, we had no choice. We had to play Bizarro. It was pretty much a lose-lose scenario either way. Like, yeah, sure, if you enjoy using Bizarro, you were pretty happy to be able to use him in Test Subject Number 1. But what if you don't like using Bizarro? Also at the time, this universe online was pushing the whole idea of the next legend is you. So imagine you created a character that is your character. You created a character that's, let's say, an acrobat because you love playing acrobats. And then you end up being stuck using Bizarro. And you end up being stuck with a flying character because that is what Bizarro is. And that's not at all what you created your character for. So you end up using a character you don't want to use, as opposed to using your character, or you end up using a legend that maybe you don't want to use. Like maybe you don't mind using the Huntress, but maybe using Bizarro, not too crazy about that. So the sad thing is that the idea behind those missions wasn't a bad idea, but they should have made it so that we could choose any legend characters that we own, as opposed to being stuck playing Bizarro. Understand that the way the story works in those missions, they built in a story around those characters, so the story wouldn't make sense with other legend characters, obviously. But you end up in a situation where you're stuck using a legend characters, and maybe it's a legend characters you don't like so much. Like I remember when we first had the hunt and the test subject number 1, a lot of people were unhappy about that because they were struggling using those characters. Like imagine you played the hunt with the Huntress using dual pistols, and you never used dual pistols before. Usually it made the mission extra challenging for people who had never used dual pistols before. The same with our friend Bizarro. What if you never played with the Bizarro legend character, and then you end up in a mission where you have to play him? The same would be true for Cersei. The same would be true with Aegis of Truth with Wonder Woman. So sadly, one of the big failures of those missions was that you were stuck using the one legend character. But what if we could have played any missions we like using any legend characters that we like? What if we could have carried to a meta research wing using Bizarro, using Superman, using Batman? Sadly, that was not an option. I understand that it would be challenging on the side of the devs, because they would have to pretty much rebalance the whole game for the legend character. And already when they made changes to was it game update 46 or 47, I forget, around that time, basically when they changed, they made a whole bunch of changes to the game. It made a whole bunch of changes to Legends PvE, and to this day a lot of people are not very happy playing Legends PvE because the Legends are not as powerful as they once were, or the NPCs are more powerful than they used to be. Either way, it's more challenging than it was in the past. But that's the crazy idea I had. Like, what if we could play every single missions using our legend characters? It would have given us an extra incentive to purchase legend characters. Although I think that was the idea behind Legend PvE, to try to give a reason for people to actually purchase more legend characters, and it didn't work out so well, sadly. So number 2 that I would add to DC Universe Online, well, let's switch. Let's go back to our other base. So option number 2 that I would add to DC Universe Online would be the option to be able to have multiple materials on a single piece of gear. For example, let's use our little friend Green Lantern here. Oh, Crypto's about to sneeze. Evil Crypto. So right now, if you want to create a Green Lantern character using our diverse materials we have in the game, sadly we have to compromise a little bit. For the chest piece, we would need to be able to have some green and some black on the chest piece to be able to create a good looking version of Green Lantern. You can see it here on the chroma version. So if we could by using 2 materials recreate the visual effect that you see on the chroma version, that would be awesome. Sadly, from what I understand, there's some technical limitations that doesn't make it possible. But there are a lot of things that used to not be possible in DC Universe Online that nowadays we have. I remember a time when just having a green aura was not possible. And look at that now. Here we are, we have a green aura. The same was true with having a Batman emblem or a Superman emblem or even a Green Lantern emblem. There's a point in time where that was not an option, but now we have it. Not only do we have a Green Lantern emblem, we have an enhanced version of the Green Lantern emblem. So hopefully, maybe someday, at some point in time, they will find some new technology, they will find some new technique to be able to do it. But I would love to be able to put two materials on a single piece of gear, or even 3 materials on a single piece of gear. Like, instead of having the material cover the entire piece of gear, what if we could assign a material to each color channel? Let me show you what I mean. Like, if we look at this Universe Online, we have 4 colors that we can assign to our character. And then depending on each piece of gear, there's 3 colors that we can assign to each piece of gear. But what if each color could be a material? So that would allow us to be able to have, let's say, 3 different materials on a piece of gear. Right now, the closest option we have to be able to recreate what I'm talking about is to use a chroma material. Sadly, there's a big flaw with the chroma material. They're freaking expensive. And also, they're going to be for a limited time only. So once, I think towards the end of the month or early next month, the chroma material will be gone. So when that happens, already the chroma materials are freaking expensive. When that happens, the prices will go through the roof, and people won't be able to purchase them anymore. So if we could achieve that effect with multiple material, like using one material, let's say the stealth material for the black part, and using the glowing material for the green part, that would be awesome. Sadly, at this point in time, not really an option, but I wish that at some point that option becomes available. So if I could add another thing to DC Universe Online, it would be that. On a side note, we have the option to be able to purchase auras for our character using replay badges. Like if you have, let's say, the green aura with another character, you can use replay badges to unlock the aura with that character. I wish we could have the same option with the materials. Again, right now, apparently it's not an option. I was hoping to be able to purchase the cosmic material for a few of my characters. Not really an option. So that's an option I would kind of like too, but I'm going to try to not cheat too much. So the option to be able to add more than one material to a single piece of gear, that's the option I would go for. And last but not least, number one. The one thing I would add to DC Universe Online is the option to be able to queue for a mission without needing a group. There's a few ways this could be done. Using the teleporter, that could be one way. What if we could teleport into any mission we like, just being solo? Technically, we already have that option with a few missions. Let me show you what I mean. Technically, we already have that option with a few missions. As you can see, there's the Fortress of Solitude, the Chasm. There's this little portal that can be used. You don't need a group. You can go in there by yourself. So if you want to play the mission completely solo, you have that option. Sadly, that is not an option that was offered for every single missions in the game. There's only a handful of missions or two that can use a portal, as opposed to using a full group to be able to go into those missions. Although there's a few missions, like in here, you can pretty much play this mission solo. Once you're a high level enough, you can play this mission solo, no problem. But there's a few missions, like Kandak. Let's go into Kandak. Been a while. Like, there is a teleport to Kandak. Sadly, there's a bit of an issue with that. So even if you can enter the Kandak map solo, sadly there are a few objectives that will stop you from being able to complete the mission by yourself. I'll try to show you a bit what I mean. So you can see that the enemies are not the problem to defeat. The problem is that there are some objectives, like there's that little rock over here that you have to use to block this little hole over here. I haven't tried it in a long time, so maybe by now, maybe at Combat Training 170, I could be able to do that. But even if I was able to complete the mission with the rock, oh, why am I grounded? I'm so sad now. So even if I was able to complete the missions with the rock, there is something else I wouldn't be able to complete a bit later anyway, which I'll try to show you in just a minute. So again, you can see the enemies. They're combat rating 56. At combat rating 270, I can handle them easily enough. So the problem is not so much the enemies as some of the mechanics in the mission that just cannot be done solo. Pretty sure it's on purpose or by design, but still, it ruins the fact that you can enter the mission solo. And once you're high level enough, you should be able. If you ask me, you should be able to play pretty much any mission by now. But sadly, you can't. Evil soldier. There we go. So I'm trying to find another objective I could show you. So we can't, there they are. So you see those little braziers. Normally when you reach this point, you have to activate them all three, I think at pretty much at the same time. So if you're by yourself, not really an option. So even if somehow you manage to pass the rock and reach this point, once you reach this point, there's no way you can activate all three braziers by yourself. At least as far as I know, it's not possible. So if I could add one thing to DCUO 9, it would be the option to be able to play solo, any mission in the game, and if you do play the mission solo, maybe make it so that you only have to activate one brazier, maybe two. So tweaking some of the objectives so that it's actually doable solo. Because once you reach combat rating 270, you should be able to go back in time and go back and play some of the earlier missions. I'm not sure why the option isn't there. I understand that again, it's by design. The devs don't want people to be able to solo every missions. I understand, and also that was part of their game plan originally. Originally, from what I understand, we were supposed to be able to play solo missions only up to tier 4, if I recall correctly. After tier 4, it was only supposed to be group missions. The argument behind that is that apparently it's as difficult for them to create a 1-player mission than it is to create an 8-player mission. So their goal at the time was to only create 8-player content past tier 4, tier 5. But there's, I guess, too many of us who enjoy playing solo missions, or who play mostly, if not only, solo missions, there were enough people who playing solo missions that I guess they had no choice but to keep on playing, on making solo content. But from what I understand, their original game plan was to pass a certain point, again past the tier 4, I think. We were supposed to only be able to play as a group. But now that those plans are pretty much out the window, I wish they would go back and reconsider either giving us portals, like we have, as you saw, we have portals to go to Kandak, we have portals to go to the various Fortress of Solitude missions. So we have portals to go to various missions. There's a Striker Island where we can go solo if we want to. There's an Arkham Asylum where we can enter the 4-player mission solo if we want to. So again, there's various group missions that we can play solo if we wish to. So I wish they would expand that so that every single missions would have a portal so that we can enter those missions solo. Or if we could use our teleporter to be able to access those missions solo, or even better yet, in the on-duty menu, add an option where we can not only select the role we want to play, but also how many players we want in the group. Do we want 1 player, 2 player, 5 players? And I'm not talking also about lowering the difficulty. They can leave the difficulty the way it is. I understand that again, not every mission should be played solo. Like obviously, they could add the option to be able to enter, let's say, Shattered Gotham solo, but keep the difficulty as it is, where it's not really an option to do it solo. It could become an option when our character is combat rating 300, 350, who knows. So eventually, maybe we could be able to complete this mission solo once the mission is old enough. But still, they could give us the option. If we want to play that mission with only 2 players, 5 players, half a group, it would be nice to be able to have the option as opposed to needing a full group to be able to go into those missions. So that is the number one thing that I would add into the game. The option to be able to go into any missions solo if we want to, or with a smaller group. Like let's say there's only me and my friend available to play and we cannot find a full group. Me and my friend could go into any mission we like and try to do that mission as a duo. I understand that that will probably never happen for 2 reasons. First, apparently there's some sort of technical difficulties with the portals. Like we even had some of the tier 5 8-player missions. There's 2 of them, I forget the name, that we could have accessed through some portals. And sadly, there's some bugs with some of the portals, so they had to remove one of the portals because it didn't work properly. So apparently there's some sort of technical issue that if they have portals that go into certain missions, it creates some issues. So I don't think that'll ever happen, in part because of that, but also in part because the devs don't seem to appreciate when we can solo group content. And even in the last very big update, they made quite a few changes to make sure that a lot of the content that we could play solo, we no longer could do that. For example, they made changes to a lot of the bounties. A lot of the bounties were much harder than they used to be. So again, the devs don't seem to like very much when we can play group content with a solo character. So I don't think that will ever happen. But again, personally, if I had the choice, if I could do the change I want to do, it would be an option. We would be able to solo group content once our character is high level enough. But maybe that's just me. What do you guys think? What things would you add to this Universe Online if you had the choice, if you had the option? Let's say you have the power, you can make the decision, you can go see Maps and say, Maps, today we're adding this to the game. And Maps has no choice but to say yes to you. So what is it that you guys would add? You can give me a top 5 list, you can give me just one item if that's all you have, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that. So that's going to be pretty much it for now, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask so in the comment section down below, and I'll see what I can do about answering your questions. So as always, guys, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.